Hello, BookTube. Since I make predominantly bookish content here on YouTube, the YouTube algorithm will often serve me up content that has the word book or books or reading in the title. I don't subscribe to these channels and I don't go looking for them, but the algorithm notices, and often the channels will appear in that cloud of suggested material and I end up watching them. And sometimes I feel the need to comment on them. And so, yes, you have guessed it, BookTube. It's another episode of Bro Watch, not Baywatch, not the greatest TV show in the history of television, but Bro Watch, where we watch one of these allegedly book-oriented motivational speaker videos and find out what they're saying, what's going on in their bookish world. Today, the BroTube channel in question is Matt D'Avella, who is a fellow minimalist, who has, at last count, 3.32 million subscribers. And the video that we're talking about today is titled, I Read 100 Self-Help Books, Here's What I Learned, which when I last saw it was sitting at around 20,000 views. So in other words, Matt D'Avella makes a good living off YouTube and is doing quite well with this video. And when I say that he is a fellow minimalist, I mean that quite literally. He is exactly the kind of minimalist that I am. And when it comes to any brotivational speaker video like this, any BroTube advice video, one of the first things, as we've covered many times on Bro Watch, one of the first things to ask yourself is the brotivational speaker explicitly lying to you? And in this case, you don't need to look at Matt D'Avella's video. I read 100 self-help books, here's what I learned, for more than a nanosecond, for more than the time it takes the light to travel from the screen to your eyes to know that he is, in fact, explicitly lying to you, because he, of course, did not do that. The title of the video is a lie. But let's say you had a little more tolerance than that and you wanted to go further into the video. Well, the first thing that he says, the very first line in the video, is a lie that's contradicted by the video itself. He says, it wasn't that long ago that self-help was seen as a secret vice. Oh, how times have changed. And he does all this B-roll footage. That's another thing you want to look for in these motivational speaker videos. Is the motivational speaker lying to you explicitly? Does the video contain tons and tons of slick B-roll footage? Does the B-roll footage reflect well on the motivational speaker? Does it, no matter how dad jokey it is, does it end up making them look good? Not just literally, but on a deeper conceptual level. All of those things are true in the case of this. The one other element that you want to look for in a motivational speaker video, like the type we brochette on BroTube, is whether or not it's an explicit grift. Whether or not the motivational speaker wants something from you, and it's just wasting your time to package the ask. And we'll get to that. But even if, let's say, you're willing to grant Matt D'Avella the howler of a lie in the title of his video, he did not read 100 self-help books, and even if you're willing to overlook the silly B-roll footage of him sort of furtively sneaking around in the self-help section of a bookstore, as if that ever happens, as if that has ever happened to anyone, even if you're willing to sort of raise an eyebrow at that line, it wasn't that long ago that self-help was seen as a secret vice. You're still not going to be able to avoid the very first thing he does in the video, which is to hold up a picture of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He mentions that it was published in 1936 and that it was a huge bestseller. That is absolutely true, but the numbers add a little heft to the word huge. 250,000 copies in a few months. A ton of gone back to the printer reprints in the course of the first year. Everyone in the country reading the book in, what was it again? In 1936. That's nearly 100 years ago. So I don't know what Matt D'Avella is talking about when he says it wasn't that long ago that self-help was viewed as a secret vice. That has in fact never been true. You don't have to look to Dale Carnegie in 1936. You can look all the way back to Poor Richard's Almanac in American history. It's never been a secret vice. It's pitched that way for one of two reasons. Either because, A, Matt D'Avella recently became aware of it and didn't know about it beforehand, so thinks he's discovering the new world. Or B, he's trying to set it up as some sort of renegade secret knowledge, some sort of thing that you're a bit of a rebel if you do. Both are obnoxious, and both are explicit attempts to manipulate the viewer, but we'll move on to what he has to say about those 100 books. Now, if you've watched my BroTube videos, then you're thinking, well, okay, if we're talking about a motivational speaker who obviously hasn't read 100 self-help books, Matt D'Avella, if I had to, I don't know him at all, I'll never meet him, I'll never talk to him, but if I had to guess, I'd say that he spends pretty much all of his waking time obsessing about money. Certainly not reading. But you might think, well, if that's the case, then buried throughout this video are going to be in-video ads and promotions and talk-ups for things like Shortform or Blinkist. And they aren't in here. I want to spoil that ahead of time. There are no explicit mentions of Shortform or Blinkist or even Audible. Although I'm sure that I would be willing to bet that Matt D'Avella probably roughly familiarized himself with the contents of maybe 10 of the 100 self-help books that he says that he read. I'd be willing to bet that he's kind of, sort of familiarized himself with maybe 10 of those, and if there was any direct contact with the text, it was through Audible. It wasn't through reading the book, despite the fact that in the video he says that this has really rekindled his love of print books. You might be thinking, well, that if he's talking about consuming book content, there must be some of the services that we have seen in other videos, because these motivational speakers love to talk about how much Warren Buffett reads, but they don't like to read. They'll do anything to get around it, but he doesn't mention anything like that in this video. There are other things that he does mention. We'll get to those, but what does he talk about the lessons of the books? Well, in addition to flattering B-roll footage and all the standard dodges and weaves of motivational speakers, there's another thing that these videos tend to have in common, which is that they're kind of a word fog. It's really hard to pin down what the person is actually saying about anything at any time. There's very little bone or gristle in what they say. So what Matt D'Avella says about what he learned from these 100 motivational books is really hard to figure out. For a few reasons. The main one being that he didn't learn anything from any of them. He doesn't do any of the things that these books profess. He stuck to the habits that he had going in. He still has those going out. But also, I think the vagueness is intentional. It allows you to draw whatever meaning you can. The more specific, that's what a lot of these self-help grifters, just in general, not on YouTube, but just in general, the Tony Robbins of the world, have figured out, is that the vaguer you make your pronouncements, the easier it is for people to read in whatever they want and pay you huge amounts of money in the process. So what did Matt D'Avella take away from those? Well, at one point he says, a good rule of thumb is to pick 3 concepts from every book and put them into practice immediately. Unlike Matt D'Avella, I have read hundreds of these things. I review hundreds of them every year. I know what they're like, and it would be a very bad idea to immediately put 3 things that they propose into practice. But he has B-roll footage of him doing that. Like, for instance, if somebody suggests that in order to get a better grip conceptually on how you relate to money, you should pay cash for everything. Matt D'Avella doesn't do that. But he has a B-roll footage of him doing that. He mentions at another point something called the flinch, that you're programmed to flinch away from things that seem to present a danger, and you should work to overcome that instinct. Definitely bad advice. And one of the things that he mentions is the stereotypical BroTube thing of cold showers. And he has B-roll footage of him allegedly standing in a cold shower. He isn't. He's never done it in his life, and it's also not a good thing to do. These self-help gurus want to become a god. That's why their style, their grifting, their constant passing around of the collection plate bear so much in common with big tent, brainless, loud, shouty, fundamentalist religious gatherings. They are effectively the same thing. It's one person acting as a guru, wanting your money. Wanting your money. Wanting your money. They don't really want to help you. They don't really want to know you. They don't really want to have anything to do with you. They want your money. If you wanted to see a reflection of that in BroTube just in general, and in I Read 100 Self Books, Here's What I Learned in particular, you need look no further than the video itself. These motivational speakers hate you. They absolutely hate you. They hate making videos. They live for the day when they can look back on this as a distant memory of when they had to hustle to make it big. Just watch this video. It couldn't be more visually obvious. Matt D'Avella hates making videos. He hates talking to you. If you can manage to watch, not a long video, so you could watch it all the way to the end. If you watch it all the way to the end, watch the final few, let's say 10 seconds, 15 seconds of the video, when the end is in sight, when the vaping can continue, when the motivational speaker knows that they're just about to finish the video and pay someone to edit it. In those last few seconds, the mask slips. The end is in sight, when they don't have to be talking to you losers anymore, when they don't have to be talking to the kind of incel losers who leave a comment on a video, and yet his video is covered in worshipful comments from people who think this guy's his friend. People think this guy's helping him. People think this guy cares two farts in a pan, whether they live or die. But one of the things that he gleans from these self-help books is a good rule of thumb is to pick 3 concepts from every book and put them into practice. And he goes through a few of those. He humbly flexes throughout the video. Motivational speakers always do that. They want to appear like you're slightly smarter, slightly cooler, scuffed up, normal guy, aw shucks, hands in pockets of older brother. But they also want to remind you regularly that they are gods on earth and that they're not interested in a fraternal relationship with you at all. They want a relationship with you, but only one girded by money. The money is essential. The money is all they care about. Which might make you wonder, well, if the money's all they care about, why doesn't he have a whole bunch of in-video patter and sales pitches about this, that, or the other thing, the way so many other motivational speakers have done in the annals of BroTube? We're getting to that. But what else does he say about these things? He mentions that these books are written by some of the smartest people in the world. That's his phrase. A howler. One of the only times in this relatively short video where I laughed out loud. They are most certainly not. First of all, they're not written by the people whose names are on the title. And second, the people whose names are on the title are notoriously dumb. Just notoriously dumb. Ask anybody who's ever interviewed one of them. They have a script, and they go off the script. And you are told ahead of time by their handlers, do not dislodge this person from the script. Don't do that. Or, we'll renege, we'll take you to court rather than have you broadcast this. We'll break the deal. And when you do get them off script, they're stuttering morons. They are only interested in money. That's all. They don't have any higher cognitive functions. They only care about money. So they aren't some of the smartest people in the world. What else does he say? Matt says, if you're not reading self-help books right now, you're missing out on a ton of invaluable content that could change your life. Again, Matt D'Avella hasn't read 100 self-help books, but I have. I've read well over 1,000 of these things. I review several of them every week. I know what's in them. I've read all the famous ones. I've read a ton of them where I've been the only reader. Other than the author, I've been the only reader. And they do not contain, what was that phrase? A ton of invaluable content that could change your life. And if they did contain that, then wouldn't that be obvious from the different motivational speakers who talk about these books? Wouldn't it be obvious? And it isn't ever obvious. Not only because these people haven't read the books they claim to have read, but because even if they did, even if they got a short form or a Blinkist summary or maybe heard a summary on Audible or something like that, they wouldn't do it. They already think they're gods. They already think they're perfect. So they're not going to change any habits because a book tells them to do that. They don't even want you to change your habits for what a self-help book tells you. They have a different desire in mind. Matt D'Avella doesn't want you to start doing what Dale Carnegie says and how to win friends and influence people. No, that's not why he's saying this. He's saying this because he wants you to be open to self-help. Not their self-help, but he wants you to open your mind to that. He's trying to instill in you some FOMO here, some fear of missing out. If you're not reading these books, which are absolute pap, just grandma-level truisms, padded out as the wisdom of the ages, just absolute pap. But he wants to instill in you the idea that if you're not reading these books, you're missing out on something. And he's going to get to what you're missing out on. He says they're brimming with life-changing insights. They are not. Make your bed. They are not brimming with life-changing insights. He goes out of his way to claim that he's read these as print books And he keeps saying there's a disproportionate amount of value in self-help books. You knew if it was a motivational speaker video that value was going to make an appearance somewhere. And he says it's a disproportionate amount of value because you're paying $15 for a paperback of one of these crappy books, but you're getting the distilled life experiences of some of the smartest people on the planet out of them. So it sounds like self-help books are the bee's knees, right? He's read 100 of them, and this is what he's learned, that it's a real value benefit, that your ROI is intense when you read these things, because some of the smartest people on the planet are distilling some of the best wisdom they've ever encountered, and it'll change your life when you read these things. Does Matt D'Avila believe that? Well, perhaps not, because although he's not selling you Blinkist or short form, he is selling you something. He gets to it at the end of the video, and it's there in the link of every one of the videos. He offers a couple of courses. I should say that courses are offered by universities. He's not accredited with anybody. But he calls them courses. One is a self-help course. The other is Book Solid. It's, I think, by far the more popular of the two, and that's how to become a YouTube star. How to become a motivational speaker yourself. How to do what he's doing and make, however much money he makes a month off passive income of having 3.32 million subscribers. That course is Book Solid. But there is another one on self-help. And even if you don't want to pay for the course, you can still sign up for the newsletter. It's called Snail Mail. It's a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for. He pitches you to sign up for it in this video, and he also directs you to the link to the website where you can do that. Snail Mail is free, but what have we learned? What have we learned in the course of BroTube? We've learned that nothing on the internet is free, right? BroWatch videos, if they've taught us nothing else, have taught us that your information is your currency. It doesn't matter if a motivational speaker is not asking you for money. Is he asking you for something that's more valuable than money? And in this case, Matt D'Avila is. You have to give him your information. That's a large amount of information. If you've got 3.32 million subscribers, that's a large amount of information. As far as I can see, there is no pledge, not even any standard legal boilerplate anywhere on his website that even vaguely promises, and the promise could be a lie, it's not legally binding, but that even vaguely promises that he will safeguard your information, that he won't sell it, that he won't monetize it in some way or other. Maybe he's an honorable man. Maybe he doesn't need to specify that. Maybe the worshipers in his comment section trust him completely. Okay, but what's he offering with Snail Mail? What is Snail Mail? Well, it's self-help. It's some self-help bulletins and thoughts and regurgitated articles, I would imagine, things like that. And how does Matt D'Avila describe it? How does he describe Snail Mail, the self-help thing that he is pushing? He describes it as no BS. Straight to the point, no BS. That's what Snail Mail will get you. Straight to the point, no BS self-help in your inbox once a week. What happened to the smartest people in the world? What happened to brimming with life-changing insights? So some of the self-help books that Matt D'Avila claims to have read, the 100 books he claims to have read, have BS in them. Some of them are time-wasting. Some of them are padded. Some of them aren't worth money. Well, there's been no mention of that in the video. You'd think if he was being self-conscious about the value of self-help books, he would mention anywhere in the video how much BS they have in them, especially if he's going to end the video by offering you real self-help that doesn't have any BS. Seems like a contradiction there, one that he has primed you to accept. Got all these books, but who has time for books? Got all these print books. You have to go to the bookstore and sort of hide because it's a shameful stigma to buy a self-help book. But I've got a newsletter, and it doesn't have any BS, and it's real short, and it's free, except I need all your info. So, it seems to me that he is setting up a dichotomy there through which he will benefit. But there's no hint of any mention that maybe the books are the reason. There's no hint in the video that the books are full of BS. I can tell you that they are. You're wasting your time to read in that genre. But he won't tell you that until it's time for him to draw an implicit contrast between them and him. But okay, so we've assessed this video. What was it called again? I read 100 self-help books. Here's what I learned. The title is a lie. The first fact claim is a lie. Most of the insights that are alluded to are dumb. Most of the B-roll footage in the video is also implicitly a lie. So once again, when we get to the end of a BroTube video, we want to ask, is there anything good that can be extracted from this video, or is it just an entire waste of time? And there are, almost always, there are a couple of good things. I want to go over a couple of those good things. One of them, Matt D'Avella makes a point at one point in the video of saying that one of the reasons why he has fallen in love again with print books is because they really make it easier and more effective to take notes. Lots and lots of notes. He mentions Ryan Holiday, who we've dealt with on BroTube, who also extols the virtues of taking notes, underlining, highlighting, extracting, commonplace book, that sort of thing. Anything that you find of interest or value in the books that you're reading. Now, I've mentioned before that one of the problems I have with Ryan Holiday, who seems more sincere than a lot of motivational speakers, is that he, either through his own mental disposition or just through hustle, has reduced himself as a reader to only an extractor. He doesn't actually read books anymore. He just extracts bits from them, grinds those bits up, and uses them in his own books. So a large part of the experience of reading that makes reading worthwhile, he just wholesale doesn't do anymore. So Matt D'Avella mentions it, but doesn't explicitly say to imitate him. But even if he did, you shouldn't. You shouldn't become the kind of, bright, shiny object grabbing minor bird that just goes through books for the kernels that you can extract and use a quote yourself. Leaving aside that extreme, though, the advice of taking notes, becoming deeply personally engaged with what you're reading, is absolutely true. Matt, in his video, makes a couple of invidious comments about the contrast between ebooks. Says that in a print book, it's easier to find what you're looking for. It's easier to find your highlights. Those things are drastically not true. It is 10 times easier to find what you're looking for. And also your notes and highlights in an electronic book. And you can do it literally at one finger tap. You can't do that with a print book. I'm not saying that print books are bad. I have taken notes in print books for a long, long, long time. And it is something that I want to recommend. It's a recommendation that Matt D'Avella makes that I want to second. It is a really good idea. Don't just read passively. Read actively. You get a lot more out of what you're reading. Some of you have told me over the years that although you recognize that it does give you more value from what you read, it slows you down. Well, okay, but that's a price that you should be willing to pay, because it's definitely true. You'll get more out of your books if you do that. And there was one other, thing, one other item in this video that is worthwhile that I wanted to end with. It's unbelievable to me that Matt D'Avella said it. It's unbelievable to me that when he said it, his own tongue didn't leap out of his mouth from the sheer hypocrisy of what he was saying. But nevertheless, he says, you need to be your own guru. This is someone who's making a self-help video, offering self-help newsletter, and proctoring for money a self-help course. But he's telling you need to be your own guru. So, all right. So coming from him, it is screaming hypocrisy, but it's nevertheless a very good idea. If by the sense of guru we mean that when you are encountering all of these life-changing advice and the wisdom of the ages here, you're sifting through it on your own for whether or not it makes any sense. You're, in other words, reading it critically and taking on board for your own life the things that make sense for you rather than conforming your life to what someone tells you. Unlike the poor lost souls in his comments field, unfortunately. That part of being your own guru is completely true. Matt D'Avella obviously doesn't mean it. He obviously doesn't mean it. He is making videos to be your guru. He is offering a newsletter every week to be your guru, and he's offering an explicit class to be your guru. You're not going to teach him in the class that you pay for, the course that you pay for. He's going to teach you. So he doesn't mean it, but that nevertheless doesn't negate it. It's still right. It's still a true piece of advice. And if people did take it to heart and be their own guru, read all of these things, examine all of these different how to change your life in these 10 habits, that sort of thing, those videos can be addictive. They can be eye candy. I agree with that. The books before them, when there was no YouTube, could be very addictive, but always in an assessing way, right? Read these things, but you're in the driver's seat. Don't make yourself anybody's sheep. Don't make yourself anybody's acolyte. Don't take a whole of a program on board. If that's what it means to be your own guru, sift all of these things and figure out what fits in your life, what you can aspire to, what you want yourself, without any talking head offering these things in exchange for money or, more importantly, information. That's what it means to be a guru, and that is good advice. That's very good advice. So it's not a total loss. So when we get to the summary of I read 100 self-help books, here's what I learned, the takeaway is pretty simple. Interact with your books, take notes, grapple them to you, work with them, chew them around in your mind, do however you have to do that. Be your own guru, and don't sign up for courses. Don't give your information. Your data is your currency. Someone's asking you for that. They're asking way, way too much. Don't do it. So there you go. That brings us to the end of another episode of Bro Watch. And we will just see when the algorithm serves me up another mention of books or reading. It's been quite some time. And for my own sake, I'm hoping it's quite some time longer. But when it happens, you'll be the first to know. Thank you, BookTube.